I'm Oliver Wolf, and welcome to the Ultimate Closer Show, where I take awesome closers out of their productive days to invest their time in you. Together, we'll talk about sales theories, philosophies, and of course, talk about some actionable strategies, tips, and techniques to make sure that you're closing more deals. And so today, very special guest, as always, we're going to have ourselves Jeremy DeMerchant. And so Jeremy DeMerchant, I'm going to read his bio for you real quick, just because I want to make sure I can really bring out the power that he has in the sales world. So Jeremy DeMerchant, the sales strategist, is a #1 best-selling author, international speaker, and creator of the Sales Authority Blueprint. Jeremy founded Permission to Sell Consulting Group after 2 decades of sales and leadership roles for industry giants in telecom, finance, and education. He believes that the most powerful way to create a positive impact in people's lives is to give them skills, confidence, and support to be able to influence positive change in themselves and others. Now, on a more personal note, I've known Jeremy now since it might have been almost 5-6 months or something like that. Yeah. And we met at, I was like on Canada Day party or something like that around the pool. And I was just starting to get my sales coaching going. And he had been a sales coach now for, at that point, how long was Permission to Sell around?
At that point, 3.5, almost 4 years.
Yeah, so 3.5, 4 years. So for sure, if you're still a coach in the same industry for that amount of time, you're doing something right. Like you would have been burnt out by the market a while ago if you weren't. So as soon as I found that out, I was like, okay, I got to talk to this guy because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so the coolest thing, and one of the things I appreciate about Jeremy so much and why he's even on the show now is his openness to be collaborative, even though I'm quite literally his competition. We had like a 2-3 hour coffee meeting. He shared with me all of his secrets and all this kind of stuff. And I was super grateful, and it really helped me get things going. And so here he is again, just being his typical sort of giving self, wanting to share with you some of his experience, his knowledge, his tips, his tricks, all kinds of different stuff like that. So Jeremy, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And why don't we just start off with, how did you get into sales in the first place? It's always
sure. Thanks, Oliver. And just so you know, nobody knows what they're doing when they start. People play the part really, really well, but truthfully, nobody has a clue. So don't worry. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I guess the starting point for me was when I was like 14 years old. I was working at a convenience store. I had really horrible social skills, had been the kid that was picked on, was heavy, had glasses, like the perfect formula for being picked on as a child. But I got this job at a convenience store just down the road from my place. Mm-hmm. And I started to kind of come out of my shell. And it was a safe place. If I was behind the counter, I felt like, okay, I can work my magic from back
behind
here.
The uniform, right?
I had a little shell. Yeah, it was this gray shell. Yeah. So it was almost like I was incognito, right?
Yeah.
And then one day, these lottery tickets came in, these scratch tickets, and they were Dooley's brand, the pool hall. So if you're American listening to this, you might not know what that is, but Dooley's is a billiards hall that we have here in Canada. And I played a little bit of pool, was not athletic at all. So that was the closest thing to a sport that I did. But I got really excited because this scratch ticket was a Dooley's scratch ticket. And I was too young to buy them myself. But I got really excited about them, and somebody walked in and I said, "Hey, have you seen these?" And she took 2. And the next person walked in and I showed them to him, and he took 2 as well. And I just kept going throughout the weekend. And by the end of that weekend shift, or the shifts, I had sold out. And I realized that if I got excited about something, I could share my enthusiasm and influence somebody's buying decisions.
Totally.
And so at that point, I kind of got hooked. It became a game. I was like, oh, how can I get somebody excited enough that they'll buy something? Mm-hmm. And so there I was, age 14, 15, and literally hooked on sales.
There you go. Pretty simple little story, but it touches such an important point in the sales world, which is that, and I'm sure you would probably agree, people buy emotionally and justify logically, right? And there's like no logic to lottery tickets at all. We all know the odds are infinite to none. Yet when a little boy gets super excited about it and transfers his emotional energy to the other person, the rest is history.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So something I really wanted to ask you, and I think it's important to ask because it's sort of a mental barrier or a fear or just something that comes up for a lot of entrepreneurs, salespeople, and so on and so forth, is, how vital, or like just in general, how vital is it to go and do outreach? And I know it's a very broad topic, but just like prospecting, outreach, all that kind of stuff. How vital is that? How important is that?
Extremely. I've found that when people start their own businesses, they do it for one of two reasons typically. One, they hate their boss. Mm-hmm. So they quit and start their own thing. Two, they're really good at something very, very specific and decide they want to go create their own business around it. Neither of those scenarios are conducive to necessarily a successful business model. Totally. You just have somebody that is either avoiding something, which is working for somebody else, or pursuing developing their own skills even further and helping more people. But sales is often that missing link. You can do a lot of things if you're good at sales. Like, even if you're horrible at keeping books, but you can sell, you can make enough money to pay a good bookkeeper, right?
I mean, with sales, you can pretty much literally do anything, right? Because without sales, there is no business.
Yeah, Mark Cuban was quoted as saying, there's not much in life that another sale won't fix. And he's right. But one thing I found is a lot of business owners are nervous about going out and asking for business or pursuing prospects. And I get it. Like when I was younger, well, not even that much younger, I used to have such bad social anxiety doing anything for the first time that I avoided getting on a public bus until I was 28 years old. And it sounds ridiculous, right? But so if someone's listening and they've got this anxiety about things, like, I get you. Like I had all these stories going through my head, like, well, what if I got on the bus and I didn't have the right change? And what if there was a lineup of people behind me and they were getting upset with me? Then what if I got on and then I missed my stop? And I just, all this stuff. And if you take a step back, all those concerns are completely valid, but they don't at all deserve the weight that I give them in the anxious state. And so I got into a situation where I left my career and decided I was going to go back to school and finish my marketing degree before I launched my business. And I didn't have a whole lot of savings set aside. So I traded in my car for a bus pass and a bicycle.
There you go.
Now, interesting thing, if you have the bus pass, that eliminated at least 2 or 3 of my fears about not having the right amount of change. I just got the pass. So my lesson there, though, is if you have these fears or these resistances, identify what you can do to minimize them as much as possible, because people just say, get over it. Well, you're not going to get over it. That's not something that happens.
Well, it's not practical either. Right?
No.
It's just like, it's like stop being sad. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, there's no how in that statement.
Yeah.
But if you can reduce them by, in my case, it was getting the bus pass. And then just have enough faith in yourself that you're going to survive the other things you're worried about. It would surprise you. Like, even just recently, people that know where I'm from are going to hate this, but I'm from New Brunswick, which is a bilingual province. And now I'm in Ottawa, which is a bilingual city. And my French is horrible. In fact, my girlfriend's French. Her whole family's French. And I'm like, oh. So whenever I drive through Quebec, I actually I hesitate to stop anywhere because I'm nervous I'm not going to be able to communicate. And I just started pushing myself the same way that I tell people to do when it comes to sales. And so I've listened to some French training, and I have coffee with my girlfriend's grandmother all the time. And she starts every conversation with bonjour, trying to get me to speak French
That's good, though. Good on her.
Oh, totally. And even just yesterday, I was driving through Montreal, and it was kind of snowy, and I had to stop for Tim Hortons coffee, as you would. Or Americans watching, it's the equivalent of Dunkin's, but better.
Careful.
Yeah. But I walked in and I said, parlez anglais? And she goes, no, a little. And I go, that's okay. And I just realized we're going to figure this out. It's just a coffee and a sandwich, right?
Yep.
And I felt really, and so did she. We both felt really good when we were done, because she felt like she'd learned a little bit, like she'd worked on her English a touch. And I could say, numero dos on the menu. Like, it wasn't a high level of French, but we communicated, and there was clearly a barrier. And that, just doing that, increased my confidence. And that's the second time on a trip through Quebec that I pushed myself and survived and felt even better
You
at the other
survived
end.
speaking French. Holy
Right. Like I shouldn't be that scared of it. I mean, I know you're bilingual too, so
yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing. Whether it's you're scared about going and knocking on a door or picking up a phone or whatever, if you can help yourself get through that, and when you get to the end and you survived, this stuff isn't going to kill you guys.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes it feels like it. Like I'll totally acknowledge it. Because in that same day, I even avoided a stop because I felt like I was too close to a center that was really, really francophone. And so like I was just like within the same 1 hour period, went from extremely nervous and anxious to let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And it was just
successful.
Success, exactly. So celebrate those successes, and it shows you that it's okay to go through it. And like I think Robin Sharma has the quote, "Change is terrifying." I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but it's scary at first. Yeah, messy in the middle and beautiful at the end. Right, and if it's not messy in the middle, there's no transformation.
Yeah, and you know what? Even to like, because I think some people might be listening and thinking like, okay, we're going off about this Tim Hortons story a little too far. But I think something to keep in mind is like fear or the ability to overcome fear is just like a muscle as well, right? And so if you can overcome fear at every time you face it, then every time any other new fear comes up, such as making that sales call, making that follow-up call, doing that consultation, setting up that appointment, doing door-to-door, whatever it is that you do, because sales is like, man, it's one of the most scariest things you can do because there's so many, what seems like unpredictable variables, right? Like, what if he says this? What if he says that? What if he says something that I don't know what to say to? Or we're like, it gets chaotic in our minds. And what's amazing, and especially again in sales, like the best thing you can do is just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And I'm sure you've had that same experience. I had the same myself. I went through hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of calls. And yeah, my first one was a total flop. And it's funny, even like when I go from new industry to new industry, but still selling, it's always as if I feel like a rookie salesperson again, almost. I get on that first call and I get off, I'm like, wow, it stinks in here. And so, but that's the thing, you got to get good at addressing these fears. So like, even if it's, again, going to a French coffee shop when you don't speak the language, it can directly relate to making that sales call and such. So yeah, you got to get good at that. So very cool. So, and then I guess to get onto some more specific stuff, because like we were talking about this a little bit before the show, which was that, we feel that a lot of people don't really have a sales system, right? They sort of want some tidbits and ideas and little strategies and tricks and like one-offs. But what they forget is that sales is not just like, don't forget to ask for the money, or, make sure you say this, or make sure you try this tonality or whatever, but it's really a collection of many little things. Right. And so like Brian Tracy says, it's like everything either moves you closer to the sale or further to the sale, everything. And so I'm curious, when it comes to you and then like systems or whatever processes, you to go from like lead to close, one, do you have a system? I would hope so. And so let's dig into that. Like, what's your system? Like, how did you come up with it? Why is it effective? Well, let's see if we can sort of dig into that a little bit, unravel the onion.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think as a salesperson, the part of my mind that lets me be creative and fluid in a sales conversation is not quite as supportive in an organizational thought process. So for years, I sold the same way. And it's still the same way I sell today, but I didn't know how to make it a system or how to call it a system. And I've had people, like when I was director of admissions at an online university, we were doing 1.35 million a month with the sales team. And the VP was like, okay, you need to write down what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. They're just doing it.
Yeah.
Right? But in hindsight, there was a process. I just hadn't formally structured it on a piece of paper.
Labeled it, identified it, broken it down, and so on, for sure.
Right. And
made it measurable, really.
Exactly, yeah. And so I started just on the core sales conversation. And when I started my business, I thought people need some kind of resource that they can download and get an idea and see the value. And so I just wrote everything I could think of about sales conversations. What are the questions I ask? What's the process I go through? What do I do to make it different than every other sales conversation they've been a part of? And then I broke it down into 5 steps. And then I made it all alliteration and made them all start with a C, and I created.
It's got to be cute, right?
Right. It's marketing, right? Alliteration is easy to remember. So that's how it started. And then I realized, I consider my superpower being sales conversations. But then I needed to go further, because that's great when you're in it. How do you get there? What do you do before you get to that sales conversation to frame it in a way that builds your authority? And as I kept kind of zooming out on the process, but taking the time to add structure, I came up with what I've called the sales authority blueprint. And the idea is, how do you develop a structure, whether you're a sales rep doing sales conversations, or whether you're a small business owner designing an experience for your prospect to have them become a client. These are the areas that everybody has to go through. They can go at different speeds, but there's 5 key areas that every single prospect needs to go through before they become a client. And I've broken it down into a system that you can replicate.
Very cool.
So I can share that if you'd like. Do you want me to share that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd love that. And I think it'd be really cool if our viewers could get access to that. Would that be possible as well?
I think we can make that happen.
Make some magic happen right here. Some sales magic.
Make some magic. Let me see. For you, Oliver, I think we can sprinkle the sales dust on it. Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
All right, so real quick, I'm going to show. So this is just kind of a preview, guys, but this is the breakdown, and it's actually really simple, but it's not necessarily easy. And so really quickly, we'll go through this, and I'll tell you where everybody can get this when we're done talking about it. But the first one's exposure. How do you get exposure to a new audience? Because if nobody knows you exist, you won't exist.
Yeah, okay. For sure. And exposure is important for building trust as well, right? I mean, that's the thing. If no one's ever heard of you, seen you, talked to you, nothing, and just get on a call and try to sell them, I mean, sorry, buddy.
Exactly.
You're just scamming me for all I know.
Exactly, right? So there's definitely some importance there. And in fact, if nobody knows about you, then you're never going to be in front of them anyway.
Totally.
Right. So it's super vital. And sometimes we take that for granted. That's the part that a lot of business owners struggle with. How do I get in front of my client? Right.
Yeah.
But the part that I think is most overlooked is the stage that I call experience. And this isn't how much experience you have. It's how do you create an experience for your audience? And here's the important part, without you knowing about it. So for example, if I asked somebody that I was speaking to a few weeks ago, I said, okay, somebody introduced me to you and said that we should talk, and you agreed to jump on a sales call. Before that, I bet you looked me up. And he said, yep. I said, okay, what did you find? And we went through, and he says, I found your videos. I found your best-selling author. And he went through all these authority building things. And I said, cool. I had no idea you were doing it.
But you did.
Well, I figured you would, but I wasn't tracking it, right? So you need to have this, like the space available, especially if you can do it through Google or Facebook, because those are the 2 areas that people are going to look for you most, or YouTube, right? To make sure that you know what they're going to find. Look up my name. I know almost exactly what you're going to find, and I'm very happy about what you find.
Cool. I actually have no idea, so I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to take note of that myself.
Google yourself, and there's and because that's when people hear Oliver Wolf, they're going to go,
yeah, who's this guy?
I don't know this guy, so they're going to probably go to Facebook first if they're under the age of 45, and if they're over 45, they're going to probably go to Google first. And that's just totally pulling an age out of my head. But either way, you want to know what they find. I was in New Orleans a couple weeks ago, meeting my girlfriend's father and his entire family there. And jokingly, his new wife looked me up on YouTube and said, hey, we found you. And I was like, oh, really glad I know it's there. Okay, good. But it was like they were judging me because they were meeting me for the first time. I was meeting them, and they were evaluating me for, as a potential partner for their daughter, right? Like
a bit of a different sale, but it's still a sale. A very, very important one.
Yeah. So having something where people can check you out, and I'll be blunt, they're judging you without you knowing, is really important. Even in an in-person situation, like a networking event. This is when you're staring across the room at somebody that walked to the door and got your attention. You're going, are they being polite to the wait staff if there's orders being served? Are they eating politely, or are they stuffing their face? What's going on, right? You're judging somebody. And then you're deciding whether or not you want to engage with them.
Oh, yeah, we totally judge someone within 3 seconds, which like goes into the whole other topic of like, hey, how do you present yourself?
Right.
But I think that's a whole other topic we can go into after.
Yeah, exactly. That's the next interview. Yeah. But from experience, you go into engagement, and what's that conversation or that conversion event that can help take them from a prospect to actually like putting their hand up saying, yes, I'm paying attention. Right. So the engagement is in a networking event. They're willing to come up and shake your hand and learn more about you. On social media, it's clicking like or share or commenting on a post,
right,
or downloading a lead magnet from a website, for example, right? Free resource. And then from there, how do you get them to that conversion conversation where you're actually making the sale and you're enrolling them into your program or selling your product or whatever it is, right? And then the sale doesn't, or the experience doesn't end at the sale, because then you need to deliver a killer experience so that you get lots of referrals. And the next time someone goes through that cycle, it's easier because they're already coming with authority built. There was one person that I was closing for a client, and he got on the call with me and he said, hey, so I have one question. Tell me how you run your sales team. And I showed them this is going to be silly and kind of off topic, but I have this wrestling belt. It's like, it was $10 in 2010 and I still have it sitting around. And each day,
and just in case you want to stop sharing your screen so we can see the beautiful.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Right. Good call.
Yeah. I'm sure we all want to see that sexy belt right there.
Right. Okay. So this is like, so I used to be like a wrestling fan when I was a kid, right? So I had this belt because I used to play video games with my nephew, and I thought it'd be cool if he beat me and actually give him the belt. But I've been using it for sales teams since like 2009, 2010. And whenever somebody does something great, I hand them the belt and they have the belt for the day. So this works in person, but also online. And as soon as this guy saw this, he says, great, sign me up. What? We did not even talk about what's going on, but he came through a referral, and somebody else had already sold him on the actual product or service. He just wanted to make sure that culturally we were a fit.
Totally.
As soon as I showed him the belt, he's like,
in a better way, it's like, because he specifically wanted that, but basically what it is just somebody needs something to justify to themselves that their decision to go ahead with you is right.
Right.
Like, that's all people are, because here's what's always fun, and I'm now taking almost on another tangent, but that's still very important, is that people want to be sold, right? Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be having a conversation with you whatsoever. So what they're doing when they're conversing with you is they're literally listening in to try to justify to themselves why they should buy. And I think a lot of people don't think that. I think people come from a place of like fear of like, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to close them. I don't want to sell them. I don't want to but it's like, bro, they're here because they want to be sold. You just need to properly do that. You need to properly show them the evidence and give them the right, get them to have the right emotion and so on to move forward with you and give them the justification they need. And sometimes, you know what? Hey, they justify that you aren't a good fit, and like, no hard feelings. You just aren't, right?
Yeah. And I think to twist that a little bit, I think people love to buy, but they don't like to be sold.
Right.
So the key is to make them feel like they're not being sold at all. It's a relationship. So when I ask these conversations, like I have a conversation with people, I don't go in pitching. I want to know what's going on with them. I want to ask whether or not they think we're a good fit and why so far and what I can do to influence that. But if they're like, I'm not buying anything today, I'll be like, great. Well, then suddenly our call's only going to be 15 minutes. Tell me more about you, like, but I still want to make some kind of connection.
For sure.
Because then if I can get a little seed planted and I can extend that to a full conversation, then, you can create the opportunity for sales. But if somebody's already got the wall up, you need to tread lightly and carry a good pitch, I guess. I think that's really the key, is building relationships first, not being attached to the outcome as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. Especially when you're starting sales, because there's going to be so many failed outcomes, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Just in general, like everyone has a dry spell, right? Like everyone walks through the desert at some point in their sales career, and you just gotta keep going because the oasis is on the other side.
Mine was my first month when I had no other option for income. I went all in and ridiculously got office space. It didn't even make any sense. But anyway, I was like, I'm gonna go big. Let's do it. And I wasn't closing any sales and I was freaking out. And my coach said, take a breath, do what you do, and just connect with people and find solutions. And within a 7-day period after having that conversation, I closed $100,000 in new business in 7 days.
Yeah.
But the 3 weeks before that, nothing.
That's a classic overthink versus just do, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was analyzing it and I was worrying about the outcome and thought, if somebody doesn't buy, that's a reflection on me. It's not, right? If somebody says no, that just means the opportunity isn't right for them, at least right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that even relates in an interesting way back to sort of how we're talking about a system, right? It's like, hey, yeah, system is useful. System is needed. Like it's good. It's good to know what you're doing in your steps and so on and so forth. But you can't like overthink it. In the end, you just got to go out and do it. And the way that your system will continue to refine is by doing it. And then I think one of the key things that you were doing just this entire interview and explaining how you got to your system and all that, that I really want to highlight is you were asking yourself a lot of questions. You just kept asking yourself questions throughout the entire journey of building it. You're like, hey, how can I do this? How can I do that? What would happen if I did this? What would happen if I did that? If I, framed it this way, framed it that way. Like you really, I think that right there is one of the keys is really asking yourself what you're doing. Like look back on your calls, like record your own calls and then listen in on them, right? Like, geez, I said that word. Why the heck did I say that? And then just like really practice and see. And again, like I said, ask yourself lots of questions. And then of course, once you ask a question where you can't find an answer, you can either Google it, you can come to the Ultimate Closer group, or you can reach out to one of us.
Exactly.
Mm.
Awesome. Beautiful segue. Good.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
For sure. Cool. Well, I think we're coming up on like the half hour here. I'd love to talk about something that I think is fun. And so we kind of like touched it a little bit. I want to bring it back some more here, which is basically just how you present yourself and how you present yourself is like super important, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of us people that are listening in, some people do like in-person appointments, they'll do only phone, they'll do video calls. I'm a huge advocate of video calls, of course, if you have to be like, if you can't go in person, for sure to me, and I'm sure you would agree, rule of thumb, if you really want to make sure you're closing, like the more human it can be. So if you can be in person, go in person, right? If like that will help close the deal. If you can't, do a video call. Right? Like it's going to be better typically. Now on that note, where I'm trying to digress here is tell me that secret going on in the camera, because you do very well at presenting yourself in a proper way on your video calls. And I do too, right? Like there's no coincidence that the Wolf Syndicate is right dead smack in the background. Let's talk about your background.
Calling me out on the little secret that you know. Yeah, well, there's a couple things. So first of all, when I do these interviews, I actually look at my face in the screen and see where my eyes are in relation to, if you've ever done photography, you want your eyes roughly like if there was two lines coming across the screen, kind of 1/3 and 2/3 mark here. I want my eyes to be right about that there. And what happens is most people aren't that high. And so when they look at a video where I'm side by side with somebody, I look like I'm standing taller, even though it doesn't matter how tall I'm actually standing.
Totally.
But it actually gives me a higher perceived level of authority.
Now I'm trying to like position myself. How am I? Am I looking okay? Is this a good position?
I think you're slightly lower than me, but not bad. Yeah.
So in video world, you're taller than me, but in the real world, I'm taller than you.
So much taller than me. Yeah, exactly. So it's an authority perception thing. Two, I always make sure I'm well dressed for interviews. You will probably see me wearing this blazer in almost every, this or one of my, a blazer in most interviews. Yeah. And often because I tend to dress better than the average person in the online space for interviews. And so it also increases my authority. They're like, oh, that guy's in a blazer.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a perception thing.
And to touch on that too, just a little bit more too, because you know what, the blazer might not always be the best thing, right? It's not like what you're trying to say is like, hey, wear a blazer and you're top of the line.
Right. No,
for you as a sales coach, yeah, you don't want to show up with raggedy hair and like a freaking, old sweater like that. But if maybe, if I don't know, let's think someone in construction. Let's talk about that for a little. Someone in construction, you don't really have to show up in a suit and a tie and everything. That's not what someone would expect you to be. Really, if anything, it's more like I'd want you to look a little bit more rough, because like I want my construction guy to have like experience and grit and like he gets his hands dirty, right? So I want to see that a little bit, right? I want to see that that's what you do. So
you want to feel like they get it.
Yeah, 100%. So really dress the part that you're looking to sell.
Well, and it's interesting, just before the call, I had a bow tie on because I got an early Christmas gift and I put it on and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And, when I've been to like some charity events and done the bow tie thing, and it looks really slick. But as I'm looking at myself in the mirror before we jumped on, I'm like, but that's not my brand.
Yeah, there you go.
That's like, it's cool at some kind of charity event. That's neat. But my brand is this. It's, no tie. I used to be the tie guy when I worked in the finance world. But no tie. This is like, I'm relaxed. but I got it together. And I rarely actually wear dress pants. I'm a jeans guy. So you see me in person, nice dress shoes, but jeans and this. And so that's all part of the brand, whether I'm on stage or on camera, same deal.
Yeah.
The other,
I like doing the rolled up dress shirt. That's my style.
There you go. Yeah. And sometimes I will do that, but I only roll it up to here.
3/4.
Yeah.
Branding.
Yeah, exactly. And all this stuff we're talking about, you don't have to match what I do. And in fact, you shouldn't, but you just have to be consistent, right? I know a guy that runs a sales coaching company, and all his branding is around having a red hat.
There you go.
It works for him, right? I don't have a red hat, so he wins on that one, you know? But some other things from a video perspective, this microphone is strategically placed in the corner of my screen. Part of it is because it captures my voice better. So functionally it's really important. But two, yeah, it does look cool. It's in the corner of my screen so people can see. And it looks like, oh, he's serious. He's got a fancy podcast microphone, right?
Yeah, you can't even see mine. You think I'm just using headphones, but I got a real mic, boys.
Right. And ironically, we're using the exact same microphone.
Yeah, but you look way cooler.
Well, it just looks like I've got a bigger setup, right?
Yeah.
And then the other big secret, you want your background to be clean and tidy, or at least consistently branding. Like yours, you've got, the awards around, you've got the logo there, like it's good.
Got a nice little plant back there.
Right, there you go. Mine is a brick wall, or it looks like a brick wall.
Da-da-da-da.
And it's because it helps the perception. And now I will give your listeners a little sneak peek at what's really back there.
Ready for this? Secret. We're gonna have to kill anybody who tells anybody else.
Yes, don't share this. But I share this with my clients too, because it shows them that you can be real, right? Ready? Here we go. Maybe. There you go. Oh, it's just a photography backdrop that I got from Amazon for $40. What?
Wow, a $40 brick wall.
That's right. And you know what? But when I zoom in, and also my camera, I've got the Logitech C920. So it's a really good camera. So I've got the software that I can zoom in. And just like that, I've got strategically placed authority. My eyes are at the right level. The background's full with the brick. I've got the microphone suited up.
Magnifique. Oh, you wouldn't know what that means, though. Cool. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I've got for today. I don't know if you wanted to sort of say anything before we log off here. Or...
Yeah, if your audience wants to download that Sales Authority Blueprint, they can go. Where did I put it? They can go to permissiontosell.com/ultimate closer.
Yeah, so it's a special link, obviously, for you ultimate closers. So thank you, Jeremy, for that. And then, of course, in terms of people wanting to get a hold of you, ask you some questions, work with you in any kind of way, what's the best way to do that?
You can just Google my name if you like, Jeremy DeMerchant, and you'll see what that experience stuff is. Or you can just go to permissiontosell.com. That's my corporate website, and message me through there, or on Facebook. Look me up on Facebook. I've got lots of videos if you want to get a feel for my style, my approach. And decide whether or not you like me, because that's cool. Either way. So
some people don't like Jeremy. I like him, but
I've met two people in the world that don't like me, and that's okay.
There you go. Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking out of your productive day and sharing with other fellow closers. I hope you guys got a lot of value. And for those of you who, of course, like I said, want to get to know Jeremy a little bit more, look him up, find him. I know him personally. You can obviously reach out to him through me. And that's going to be it for today's show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I'm also in the group. So
true.
Reach out to me there too. Thanks a lot.